Caitlyn Jenner may replace Gavin Newsom. Racism is a health issue. Amazon warehouse workers won't unionize, and here is to fostering productive conversation. This is the April 16th report. I am your host, Isaac Lopez, and this show is presented by TLG Radio. Stick around for the brief breakdown where we will discuss how to develop discernment when reading news stories to help further the goal of fostering productive conversation. In politics, with an impending recall election looming for current governor of California, Gavin Newsom, hats are being tossed into the ring for the consideration of replacement. Amongst those who have expressed interest is Caitlyn Jenner. A Rice study shows that should we press on with President Biden's proposed tax hike, we will potentially lose 1 million jobs in 2 years. The study shows that the above changes, including the increased corporate tax rate, would result in less economic activity and 1 million jobs lost in the first 2 years. You can find this report in the research document. President Biden is set to address Congress for the first time in his presidency on April 28th, so stay tuned for that. On to sports. A report from The Blaze says that authorities are still searching for a motive after they say former NFL player Philip Adams went to the home of Dr. Robert Leslie of Rock Hill, South Carolina on Wednesday, fatally shooting the physician along with the doctor's wife, 2 of their grandchildren, and an HVAC technician who was working at the couple's home. Another repairman was also shot and is currently hospitalized. Adams, 32, then took his own life as law enforcement sought to coax him out of his father's home during a standoff the next day. According to Fox News, on Sunday, Matsuyama, who shot a 1/73, won the Masters by 1 stroke, becoming the first male golfer from Japan to claim one of golf's major championships. Monday afternoon received the news that Julian Edelman, 3-time Super Bowl champ, would be retiring from the NFL. He accumulated 620 receptions, 6,822 receiving yards, and 41 touchdowns in his time in the NFL. This from the CDC. Today, Rochelle P. Walensky, MD, MPH, Director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and Administrator of the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, declared racism a serious public health threat. Adding action to words, she highlighted several new efforts CDC is leading to accelerate its work to address racism as a fundamental driver of racial and ethnic health inequities in the United States. She also unveiled a new website, Racism in Health, that will serve as a hub for the agency's efforts and a catalyst for greater education and dialogue around these critical issues. We are seeing personal protective equipment, or PEE, plaguing the oceans. This stat from the oceanconservancy.org, 94% of more than 200 ICC volunteers and coordinators surveyed reported observing PPE pollution at a cleanup in 2020. Nearly half of the surveyed volunteers reported that a vast majority of the PPE, 75% and over, was single-use and disposable. More than 80% of survey respondents identified face masks as the most common form of PPE they encountered. 37% of survey respondents reported observing PPE submerged in bodies of water. On to culture. After agreeing to a $100 million deal with Spotify, Joe Rogan is seeing some of his episodes being taken off of the platform. 42 of his nearly 1,500 episode catalog have been removed. There is a theory that this might be to avoid a strike amongst the streaming platform's employees. In September, a contingent of activist Spotify staffers were considering a walkout or full-blown strike if their demands for a direct editorial oversight of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast aren't met, a report said. Warehouse workers for Amazon in Alabama voted to not join the retail, wholesale, and department store union. Needless to say, Amazon was excited to hear this news. Rioters in Portland attempted to burn down the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement building. The mob reportedly chanted, "Every city, every town, burn the precinct to the ground." And finally, in some good news, The Olive is a project derived from a USC student think tank that seeks to make social change, and they recently moved to Instagram to combat the polarization that they have been seeing taking place on social media platforms. This following excerpt is from the Daily Trojan. This quote is from Zhu, who said, "We realized that polarization seems to be something that was not only increasing, but also really damaging towards both civil discussion amongst people and political conversation amongst people, as well as the actual political process itself. So we were trying to come up with ways that we could, in a way, address political polarization." End quote. Here is to, as they say, fostering productive conversation. If you want to drop a tip, email me at thebriefnewsbrief@gmail.com. Also, if you want more reporting from other reporters such as myself who share a similar vision, check out TLG News, a site dedicated to reporting in succinct and honest ways. If you're interested in writing for TLG, reach out to me at thebriefnewsbrief@gmail.com. Follow this to keep up with TLG Radio and all things The Life Given. Follow us on Facebook at The Life Given News, and on Instagram we have two different accounts, TLG News and The Life Given Radio. Remember who the real enemy is. Ephesians 6:12. God bless, and I will speak with you next Friday for another report, or right after this in the brief breakdown. So we ended the news brief with the phrase fostering productive conversation. Toward that end, it is important to develop discernment when reading the news and to know what is and what isn't the story. The story can sometimes be completely different than the actual event that news sites are covering. It could be an extrapolation, exaggeration, or just a blatant falsehood. Here is something that I received in my inbox that borders on all three of those. It is titled Biden Border Coordinator Roberta Jacobson Stepping Down. And in the email, it was also titled Biden's Border Czar Stepping Down as Crisis Grows. In the description of the email newsletter blurb said, the Biden administration's southern border coordinator will step down at the end of the month as officials continue to struggle with a large influx of migrants trying to enter the United States. Now, what do you think that I thought when I clicked on this headline? I thought that this czar was being removed due to her inabilities to run a successful program. She wasn't performing her job well. The southern border has been a hot topic for years, and even more so in the news recently. That's almost in every 10th email I get to my inbox for this newsletter that I sign up for these newsletters. And that's the story, right? That's the setting that this newsletter is entering into. That's the space that it's speaking into. And so when you follow the link, this is the first thing right off the bat. After Biden border coordinator Roberta Johnson stepping down, it then follows up directly after that. Her position was always intended to last 100 days, which expires at the end of the month. So this is not necessarily because she's being removed. It is her agreement. And it is the agreed upon termination date of her position. And this is just quite simply, and we can get into reading the first part of this article from Fox News, by the way. So when I do, I want to start doing a series on just reading articles that, and just kind of discussing and parsing out what is actually the story and what isn't. Here, the story is the southern border crisis, and what they were projecting as part of the story, and what is the headline that catches the eye is, whoa, this person is incapable at their job, and of course the Democrats are failing at the southern border. Now, that could be true, but what is not stated in the title, and what is an important fact that they leave out until you click on their story, is that She's actually stepping aside because that was the agreement that she made with the Biden administration. So the article begins, the Biden administration's southern border coordinator will step down at the end of the month as officials continue to struggle with a large influx of migrants trying to enter the United States. So there's a story, but also the important fact is that, yes, she is stepping aside. And National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said in a statement, the report goes on, consistent with her commitment to serve in the administration's first 100 days, Ambassador Jacobson will retire from her role as coordinator at the end of this month. Nothing new there. What they're doing here is just couching a fact so that they can speak more about the story that does not make the Biden administration look good. And they just go on to list facts of things that they're struggling to accomplish at the border. So a lot of the things that they list here are in other articles. They are just wanting to ride the wave of story and news that is being rippled out because of the splash that was made by the southern border crisis. Anyway, I just thought that was really interesting. I see that almost on a weekly basis while I'm researching for the Newsbrief, and I think it's good to start developing discernment when it comes to current events and politics, so that way we don't get caught up as readers and active citizens in the political discourse of our country. We do not get lost and caught up in, wow, I can't believe this story is the fact. No, there's a fact and then there's the story. Anyway, let me know what you think. That's it for the brief breakdown this week. It was brief, and that's what I promised to do with this entire podcast, is keep everything brief and succinct. If you like the stories I'm covering, let me know. If you dislike the way that I'm handling myself in the stories I'm reporting on, let me know. Reach out to me at thebriefnewsbrief@gmail.com. And I appreciate any and all feedback. Remember who the real enemy is. God bless, and I will speak with you next week.